This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Giduyot. It's Monday, November 4th. This is Africa 54. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed defends the government response to ethnic clashes. The unintended consequences of Ivory Coast's new gambling laws. And Africa's only wheelchair rugby league battles it out. We'll have those stories in a moment, but first, South Africa's decisive 32-12 victory over England made history in the Rugby World Cup final as a black captain for the first time led the Springboks. 28-year-old Siya Kolisi rose to the peak of a sport long associated with apartheid. Rugby fans who watched the final Saturday say the win is even sweeter because it represents a real breakthrough in this nation's bitter racial history. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Johannesburg.
A win for South Africa, in more ways than one. This is a third world title for South African rugby, but the first time the Springboks team is led by a black captain, Siya Kolisi. Longtime rugby fan Thando Makasi comes from Kolisi's hometown, Zwide. Inspired by his life and performance, she wishes her 17-year-old son would play too.
I think it's a win overall. I think this tournament has just brought so much hope. I mean, South Africa, the year has been going, the change in presidency, the elections, and we come to this point where we really are rallying behind the Boks and we're one together, stronger together. So that's a win. That's a win for South Africa.
Kolisi triumphed over the odds, from childhood in a poor black township to the head of the national rugby squad. Rugby has always been a mostly white sport in this majority black nation, highlighting the deep divide left by the racist apartheid system, which ended in 1994. Nigel Ngwenya plays rugby for the University of the Witwatersrand and is a rare England fan in this crowd. But he gives the Springboks and their captain their due.
They have that fighting spirit. They've got that never give up, never die spirit. Whatever you bring to the table, they try to catch up and actually do better, which they've been doing in the past games. Siya Kolisi, oh man, guys coming from far. Guys coming from far, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's a shame I'm not supporting. I would have preferred him to play for England, but...
For South African rugby fans, this is more than just a game. It's about the soul of this nation.
In South Africa, it's not about color. Well, since 1994, we are just trying. Eventually, we're getting there just to be South Africans. But one thing I love about sports, it always brings us all together. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you have, what you don't have. It's sports.
By the final whistle and a 32-12 victory for South Africa, even England supporters like Ngwenya were changed fans. It was only 80 minutes of play, but a new chapter in the Rainbow Nation's story of hope and unity. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
In other news, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said on Sunday the death toll from protests last month had risen to 86. He urged citizens to resist forces threatening to impede the country's progress. Abiy told a news conference broadcast by state-affiliated Fana Broadcasting, quote, "We have to stop forces who are trying to pull us 2 steps back while we are going 1 step forward." Supporters of activist Jawar Mohammed took to the streets on October 23rd and 24th to protest after he said police had surrounded his home in the capital Addis Ababa and tried to withdraw his government security detail. Abiy said the latest death toll, which the government late last week put at 78, included 82 men and 4 women. Most were from the Oromo and Amhara ethnic groups. The United Nations says protests last month in several cities in Oromia province left more than 2 million people internally displaced. Abiy won the Nobel Peace Prize last month for his peacemaking efforts, which ended 2 decades of hostility with longtime enemy Eritrea. In North Africa, Egyptian military said on Monday they have killed 83 suspected Islamist militants in operations in central and north Sinai over the past month. It did not name the militants or their affiliation. The military also said forces detained 61 criminal suspects and found and detonated 376 explosive devices during the period, which it dated from September 28th. The armed forces say hundreds of militants have been killed since it launched a large campaign in February 2018 aimed at defeating Islamic State or related jihadist groups in the Sinai Peninsula, which borders Israel and Gaza. In a telegram Saturday, Egypt's Islamic State affiliate Sinai province saw allegiance to ISIS' new leader named by the group following the death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Now, schools in hard-hit areas have been forced to shut their doors as Somalia continues to struggle with heavy flooding that has left 500,000 people displaced. Vince McCory has the story.
In the central Somali town of Beledweyne, rising floodwaters caused cancellation of regular classes and physical damage to schools. Education officials said students and teachers have been forced to flee to higher ground, where aid agencies are providing life-saving assistance, including shelter to 250,000 people. It is the second flood to affect Beledweyne in less than a year. In 2018, floods forced the Ministry of Education to postpone national examinations.
A total of 86 schools have been affected by the floods. More than 27 students are out of school as a result. 700 teachers are also out of work as locals flee to higher ground due to floods in Beledweyne city and surrounding regions.
Health officials said more than a dozen people have died from the recent floods, with others still missing. The country's president, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, toured the hardest-hit areas and promised government support to end recurrent floods in Beledweyne.
Last year, we witnessed a similar tragedy. We hope this will be the last kind of floods witnessed in Beledweyne. We will work with neighboring countries and all relevant authorities to mitigate the crisis and ensure our people don't have to suffer again.
Weeks of flooding have destroyed basic infrastructure in the city. Roads have been turned into rivers and farmlands have been destroyed. The threat of waterborne diseases remains the biggest fear for aid agencies and local authorities. Humanitarian aid has arrived in the town from aid agencies, government and local communities.
We are bringing more commodities as the regular food basket to be able to support up to 2 months the area of Beledweyne and surrounded locations which are flooded and being impacted by the latest climate change.
Authorities said once the situation is restored to normalcy, a task force from Somalia will meet with Ethiopian officials to address the recent flooding. Experts also say that a lasting solution is needed to ensure families are no longer forced to flee their homes. Vincent McCory, Africa 54.
In what would be a first in a long time, Zimbabwe police have given public sector workers permission to march for better pay on Wednesday. This is widely seen as a test of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's willingness to tolerate dissent. Police said the protest could go ahead, but also warned that authorities would stop the march if it turned violent. Mnangagwa has banned several opposition protests and faces accusations that he is using Mugabe's heavy-handed tactics. Ivory Coast passed a law in 2018 to better regulate the gambling sector. However, the opening of illegal gaming spaces is experiencing a sharp increase, thus exposing younger players. VOA's Heidi Adam Fitzpatrick has this story.
In Ivory Coast, gambling is regulated by the National Lottery. The LONASI is making a lot of money because more and more people are betting frantically on horse races and football games. Some play poker, others the lotto, and demand is growing. An illegal alternative is also available. It's particularly attractive to young Ivorians. Increasingly, children and teenagers are playing the lottery, or what is referred to as casino slot machines.
Since I was 15 or 16 years old, I played the game of chance. Many think the game of chance is harmful for the youth. Everyone has their reasons why they play. Some come for money, others to pass time. The main problem is money.
If Fabrice tries to rationalize his addiction to the game, there are others who don't hide it and try to earn as much money as they can in a society where unemployment is high. According to the social squad of the Abidjan police headquarters, 85% of Ivorians aged between 10 and 14 play at least occasionally. A quarter of children and adolescents between the ages of 10 and 18 play nearly every day. These young people often come from low-income neighborhoods. For them, gambling is an opportunity to make a living. Their addiction doesn't seem to bother the tenants of these clandestine establishments. They're raking in large daily sums of money without worrying about the age of their clients.
I have been in this business for a long time. It has been at least 6 or 7 years. Often we have 20,000 to 30,000 customers. The customers are now regular. There are the minors, there are the adults, all those who want to have fun come.
To combat underage gambling, police, through the Department of the Social Brigade in charge of minors, work in close collaboration with the LONASI. Raids are carried out regularly. Awareness campaigns are also targeted at the managers of illegal casinos so they don't allow minors onto their premises, an approach that is beginning to bear fruit.
There are no jobs, so we have to do this so we do not steal. I'm trying to find excuses, but we do not go too far because we know a little about what it does. So I do not really encourage it. There are people who have not returned home. It's true that you can win. When you win, you want to win even more, so you put more money in it.
In Abidjan, winning the jackpot is everyone's dream, but it takes many losses to finally make a winner.
VOA's Hedy Adams-Fitzpatrick reporting. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in April said he would give the U.S. until the end of the year to become more flexible on nuclear talks. Since then, he's launched 12 rounds of missiles to back up that warning, including a launch on Thursday. So far, though, there's no evidence the U.S. is changing its stance, meaning the situation could soon get much more volatile. VOA's Bill Gallo reports from Seoul.
A preview of what may be to come. North Korea on Thursday launched 2 more missiles, the same multiple rocket launch system it tested in August and September. More evidence Kim Jong-un is serious about his end-of-year deadline for the U.S. to offer more concessions in nuclear talks.
I assume that a huge change will take place next year. That is what I am worrying about right now. In general, there is a big chance things will get worse.
As the end of the year approaches, North Korea's warnings are getting louder. Last month, Kim rode a white horse up his country's tallest mountain, with state media threatening a great operation to strike the world with wonder. Last week, North Korea said Kim's relationship with U.S. President Donald Trump should not be used as a delaying tactic. It also warned that the U.S. is seriously mistaken if it ignores its end-of-year deadline.
If there's no third summit planned, or at least a tangible outcome, it's likely that North Korea will conduct nuclear tests or launch an intercontinental ballistic missile.
In recent weeks, North Korea has warned there's no guarantee it won't restart long-range missile or nuclear tests. But Trump, who is dealing with an impeachment inquiry that could threaten his presidency, has given no signs he'll respond to North Korea's deadline. In recent weeks, Trump has barely mentioned North Korea at all. The question is whether Kim Jong-un will soon take bigger steps to get Trump's attention. Bill Gallo, VOA News, Seoul.
We would like to know what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a closer look at the continent's only National League of Wheelchair Rugby. We'll be back.
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Rwanda has its first electric vehicle. Known as the e-Golf, the vehicle, imported by global car maker Volkswagen, will be used for the company's local ride-hailing service. Unlike many African countries, Rwandan electricity is relatively reliable. 15 charging stations built by Siemens will be available in Kigali to charge the electric cars. Up to 80% of the battery can be charged within an hour at a station. While VW acknowledged the high price of electric cars would not appeal to most African consumers, it's hopeful scaling up production and favorable government policy will help bring prices down. Next up, Islamic fatwas, or religious decrees, are getting an AI twist. The UAE's Islamic Affairs and Charitable Activities Department has launched a virtual ifta program to give AI-generated guidance to Muslims on their religious queries. The chatbot takes live questions and replies back. It's available 24/7. It's claimed to be the first of its kind in the Islamic world. The IACAD ifta department also provides services through a toll-free phone service, via email, face-to-face consultations, and more. And finally, have you ever gotten lost in a graveyard? Now there's an app for that. It's called Graves, with a Z, like Waze, the popular GPS app, except instead of navigating highways, it navigates cemeteries in Israel. The goal is to bring people to the graves of their loved ones with as little fuss as possible. They simply enter the name of the deceased and the approximate year they died and the cemetery, and the app does the rest. It will even give you suggested parking spots. The app's creators say they plan to bring it overseas, maybe to a cemetery near you. And that's what's trending today.
In other news, Democrats and Republicans continue to spar as the U.S. House of Representatives prepares for public hearings in the impeachment inquiry of President Donald Trump. VOA's Arash Arbasadi has our report.
Last week, the democratically led House formalized the next steps in the impeachment inquiry consuming Washington.
On this vote, the yeas are 232, the nays are 196. The resolution is adopted without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Democrats say Trump committed an impeachable offense by withholding congressionally approved aid to press Ukraine to investigate a political rival, former Vice President Joe Biden. Biden is seeking the Democratic nomination in the 2020 presidential election.
It's a matter of taking American money that the Congress allocated for foreign aid for a country, to withhold it and say to that leader, I'm not going to give it to you unless you do what I need you to do. That is an absolute disgrace, and that's one of the reasons we're here.
Republicans, meanwhile, continued casting doubt on the legitimacy of the investigation led by Democrats that so far has been conducted behind closed doors.
Madam Speaker, when you look through this resolution and you see how one-sided, how Soviet-style this is running, this is the United States of America. Don't run a sham process, a tainted process like this resolution ensures.
Trump, too, has been far from silent.
The Democrats are crazed. They're lunatics. The impeachment thing is a hoax. Now, whether or not they try pulling it off, it would be a disgrace.
Dozens of Republicans sit on committees involved in the impeachment probe. But the president's defenders say that's not enough.
They're literally going behind closed doors to deny rights to not only the Republicans and President Trump, but to the American people. There are a lot of questions that haven't been answered. We can't see the transcripts still. I wish those were held in public.
Democrats say Republicans trumpet procedural objections in order to sidestep having to defend Trump's actions.
The Republicans keep moving the goalposts. They tell us they want us to be transparent. When we're transparent, it's not good enough. They can't complain about not having open hearings, and then when we have open hearings, complain about that as well.
The impeachment spectacle will grow in intensity when public televised hearings begin. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
It's time for Monday Sports, and joining us now is our sports reporter, Sunday Shomari. Hello, Sunday. I have a gut feeling you have great sports news for us today.
Hello, Esther. You are right. Let's start in New York, where Kenyans continue to display dominance in long-distance running on the streets of New York on Sunday. Newcomer Joyciline Jep-Kosgei's win in the women's race by 2 hours, 22 minutes and 38 seconds as her fellow countrywoman, Mary Keitany, took the second place. Having won 4 times in 8 tries in New York, there's obviously a potential change of guard among female Kenyan runners. Jep-Kosgei is the world record holder in the half marathon. She's holding the second fastest time ever in women's open division, according to the New York City Marathon. Another Kenyan, Geoffrey Kamworor, 26 years old, took the men's race in 2 hours, 8 minutes and 13 seconds, winning in New York for the second time in 3 years. And his fellow countryman, Albert Korir, took the second place. In Premier League, Chelsea secured the best streakaway of winning victories all competitions in the Premier League era after their 2-1 victory at Watford on Saturday. Meanwhile, Man United, or the Red Devils, are still facing woes after losing 1-0 at the hands of Bournemouth. What used to be Fergie or Ferguson's time for Manchester United scoring last-minute goals is now becoming Liverpool's cup of tea, as they keep winning in the dying minutes of the game, as they found a very late equalizer as stoppage time winner at Aston Villa to win 2-1. On the other hand, video assistant referees VAR were introduced in the Premier League this season to help make difficult decisions easier and eradicate clear and obvious errors, but it continues to generate controversy. And now to South Africa, which currently holds the Rugby World Cup championship. Get this, it also has Africa's only national league of wheelchair rugby, the only full-contact Paralympic sport. While wheelchair rugby is an amateur sport with limited resources, there is no shortage of dedication and determination. Maurice de Klerk has more from South Africa's capital, Pretoria.
The South African Wheelchair Rugby League finals mean the country's best players literally get to crash things out on the court. Oki Anker of Pretoria dreamt of becoming a Springbok, like many of the country's rugby-playing boys. But he broke his neck during a high school match in 2011. Now he considers himself honoured to have played twice for the Wheelboks, South Africa's national wheelchair rugby team.
From the first day, I was just loving the game, and the contact and the adrenaline that pumping is almost the same as normal rugby. We faced the Haka 2 times in 2013 and 3 times in 2015. It was a great experience to still face the Haka and sing the national anthem.
Lerato Nechani became Africa's first female wheelchair rugby player 12 years ago. After taking some time off, she's back, playing with the Mustangs of Bloemfontein in Free State Province and encouraging the next generation of players.
With the limited resources that we have, we are trying, and I believe that the Lord is going to take us through to where we need to go. Because now, whatever we do, especially as a team, we are not doing it only for ourselves.
Playing wheelchair rugby is pricey. An imported specialized high-performance wheelchair alone costs just over $8,000. But a former wheelbok and Mustang player developed a beginner's chair that costs about 1/5 the price of imported ones.
If we have the means to, as I mentioned, as in South Africa, create awareness amongst the sport with cost-effective chairs, we can just as well do it in other countries, and one of these days have more African countries competing against each other.
South African wheelchair rugby hasn't competed internationally since 2015 because it's simply too expensive. Officials say despite the cost, they are working to develop the sport across Africa.
With our affiliation to South African Rugby Union and the other rugby unions in South Africa, we're now slowly starting to create further awareness. And once that awareness has got a good foundation, we're then looking at rolling that out into the rest of Africa.
After plenty of sweat, the Mustangs lifted the trophy for the 4th time running in this year's South African Wheelchair Rugby League. Finances permitting, South Africa Wheelchair Rugby hopes to compete internationally again next year. Marise de Klerk for VOA News, Pretoria, South Africa.
What a great story. South Africans are ready to compete in rugby. And that wraps our sports for today. And Esther, back to you.
Sorry, Sunday, I stole the thunder from you today on the South African Rugby Championship.
Yes.
What more can you tell the viewers?
Yes. What a story, Esther. You remember back in 1994, the president of South Africa was there with the Springboks. But this time around, it says a more of a bigger moment for the country to unite together, Esther. They really needed this championship this time around, especially, as you mentioned, a black captain for the first time for the Springboks. What an honor.
Huge.
You know?
That's so big. I mean, you know, a country that went through apartheid.
Yes.
And now everybody, nobody cares about color there anymore.
I know.
Yeah, sports is good, right?
Exactly. Sports is always great, Esther. Puts people together all the time.
Oh, my. No politics. Thank you so much, Sunday.
Welcome.
All right. Join Sunday Shomari next Monday for another sports report right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.